Well, I was kind of thinking that what we could do is that I could share my screen and I could do a puzzle survival and then I could like do as many as I can do, but then like you could like kind of give me hints if you seem like I'm struggling, and then we could like kind of explain every puzzle. So I think that could be really educational for everybody.
Absolutely. I was just pulling up your profile here. I was trying to see your like what's your best, like what are your stats in puzzles at the moment?
So I think that my highest score is 60. And then
Okay.
Puzzle Rush, I think it's like 34 for 3 minutes.
Yeah, you're trying to beat your high, obviously.
I'm trying to beat my high in Puzzle Survival, yes. I'm trying to get more than 60. So hopefully I'll be able to do
Sounds
that. What is your highest score in Survival?
Well, I believe it's 69.
Okay, so it's not like, too far away.
Not too far away. No. Admittedly, haven't done it so much, but I was very happy with that high score. So I haven't tried it much after that.
Okay, I get happy when I see that, when I see one that's easy and you see it immediately, that just feels very good. So, okay, here we have the checkmate. And here we have this one, this other checkmate. And that's another checkmate. Lots of checkmates. Checkmates in one. Okay.
We'll take those.
You take
We'll
those.
take those.
I guess we take these as well, yeah? I mean, do we just take the rook or what? I guess we just take the rook. Okay, I hate these type. I feel like this is like, like this should be super easy, but I'm afraid I'm gonna go the wrong way. How are we doing with material? This is rook, knight, queen. Okay, so we're a piece down, so we can't, okay. We need to...
I agree with you, by the way. The ones where you have to move the king, or at least it's an option to move the king, and you have to decide there, are like my least favorite. I hate it.
Yeah, because it's just... It
You feel
feels...
like you can take the wrong step like so easily.
Yeah. But I feel like I should be moving my king, because if I just go rook f8, I feel like the queen is just going to move, and then we're not threatening checkmate anymore, and we're a piece down. So I feel like we should do that, but what happens? King g7, and then like queen b7 check, and then I guess we just go king h6, and that should just be fine. So, okay, yeah, good.
So do you have a number where you know in your head, and maybe from experience, that it starts to get tricky, or like maybe you've got some wrong there before, or you really have to start tension?
I would say that I need to like really start thinking start thinking at like 25, and then like really start thinking at like 30, 35, 40 kind of. So h6 I'm thinking, but it's not really forcing enough obviously because the rook is hanging. Okay, that doesn't work. So we need to go for this check first, I guess, and then the king goes to g7 only move. h6, g6, and then we have rook check. King here, no, but maybe what we can do is that we can go with the king to g4 to stop this king from going to f5. Yeah, I think that's it. We just need to stop the king from moving up here. I think it should be check.
So hang on, slow down.
I'm gonna slow down.
Slow down.
Slow down. Okay.
I think whenever you end your puzzle with a move that's like, whenever you end your calculation with a move that's not a check, you should absolutely examine another move for your opponent. And right now, I don't think you've thought about maybe how they could end the puzzle. So you've ended the puzzle with like h6, king g6, and then king g4, which is not a check. You haven't thought about maybe all the moves that they could do. Like, for example, they have f5, which is a check. They have rook takes g5, which is the best move, and also a check, and wins a pawn.
Yeah, that is very true.
Whenever you think about calculating and you're going to end your calculation with a move that's not a check, that should absolutely never be the last move of your thought. You should always go one more for your opponent.
Yeah, no, that actually makes a lot of sense. I just saw the checkmate. That was really good. I think that's my issue with puzzles, that I'll like see an idea and then I'll just be like, yeah, this just looks great, and then I'll just like not think it through. If I've gotten like the first few moves right, I'll be like, now I know the whole idea just because I got the first few moves right. But you need to think about every move. So yeah.
If you end it with a check, then like you sort of know like basically what to expect, and they have like forced moves. But when you end it with like king g4, it's like, hold on, they can move anywhere at this point, so you may as well double check it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I saw it now with rook here, and then rook f6 checkmate after king f5. So if queen check and then king here, then we will just be able to take the queen, but for some reason I feel like that just looks a little bit too easy for this.
Well, the first thing that I like to do whenever I'm in position, first of all, which looks absolutely insane. Like, this position looks crazy. There's like stuff hanging left and right. Whenever there's a free piece that you can take, for example, on h5, there's always usually a material imbalance. So the first thing that I like to do is understand maybe like how much material I need to win in order to be winning. Like in this position, what's the material? Am I down a piece? Am I down a rook? Am I down like a queen? If I'm down a queen, I probably have to go for mate. If I'm down a piece, then maybe I can win a queen and then win the game. So first thing I like to do is check the material just to make sure I know what I need to win.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that's what we need to do here. So if we just count everything, so that's a bishop and a knight and a rook, and we're right now, if we just count the way it is right now, we're one minor piece down because they have 3 pieces, we have 2. So so if we get a queen, then they're gonna be winning this bishop, but we're still gonna be material up. We're just gonna be able to get the king up, and we're still gonna be material up.
Yep.
I mean, that just seems like what we should do. King d7, and then we're just material up. Good.
And I guess something that you obviously thought about, but maybe didn't say out loud, was that if you had gone to like a dark square like d8 or e7, then you would have lost to bishop g5 discovered check.
Yeah.
Like winning your queen on d1.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's why it was really important to go to a light square, to go to, for instance, d7.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that we have lots of double checks. So if we take on h7 with the pawn, then we're going to be having a double check both with the queen and the pawn. So the only move will be to go king h8. Yeah, then the issue is that I don't really know what to do after that. I don't really see any other check. I was thinking of something like, I don't know, going something like queen h4 or something, but I mean the pawn will just go to f6 or f5, so there's not really going to be anything there. And if we take on f7, which is the other candidate move that I'm thinking about, I mean there are probably more candidate moves, but those are 2 first moves that come to mind. If the king goes here, then we're going to have rook takes h7, king takes h7, and checkmate on h1 by bringing the other rook. So the king has to take. We're going to be bringing our rook, and the only move is to go king here, and then we're just going to be taking on e6, and it's going to be a checkmate. So
I think the easiest way to approach these problems is that anytime you're down material, but you can also see that there are a lot of ways you can be checked. Like for example, last problem, black had like queen b2, queen c2, knight takes d4, like all these checks that you'll never be able to escape, is that every single move you have to play needs to be checked.
Yeah.
And it usually makes the solution easier to find.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a really good example because of all the checks they had, not just, that a rook was hanging, but also that they had so many checks that we couldn't escape. All right, so this one I feel like it's pretty easy, the first move, because if there's a check here, and if I go something like king h1, which is the only move I can do with the king, there's going to be a checkmate in 1. Or checkmate in 2, I guess. I mean, the first move has to be to take this knight. And now, I mean, we are getting super checkmated very soon, I feel. Or maybe we're not. I feel like we're getting checkmated. We're actually a piece up here. Maybe I'm just being too negative about something like king h1. But no, okay, this one is hanging. Okay. The first thing that I was looking at was something like either rook g8 or rook h7, because I just want to look at all the checks first before anything, because those are the most forcing moves. If takes, I mean, my idea was just to bring the other rook in here to the game. But the issue is that they're going to be taking this rook, the f rook. Well, actually, both are f rooks. f2 rook.
Yes.
And they're going to be blocking the check at the same time as we're going to be in check. So that's going to be a disaster. So we can't do that. I'm going to look at rook d8. So if king h7, we just have a checkmate. Always showing why it works.
Yeah, always showing the easy ones first. Yeah.
If rook takes. But we're always going to have this issue though, aren't we?
What issue?
Like the, going back with the pieces issue.
Oh, you mean like you were going queen e5 check and then rook f6 you were looking at?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure what exactly I'm looking at, but that was one of the things I was looking at. Okay. And the other issue is, and yes, I'm bringing another move that makes me sound clever even though I know it doesn't work, is that if I go for something like rook d6 and kick away the queen and try to, you know, put some pressure over here, do something like this, then there's just going to be rook f1, and then that's going to be a double check, which is also going to be a checkmate because there are going to be two pieces that are going to be attacking my king. So that's
So I think like when you realize that, or when you say that out loud, and you know there's checkmate in 1 on the board, it absolutely tells you that unless you're planning to play move king h1, like you simply need to make moves that are checks. So as soon as you come on to this conclusion, then actually the only two moves to consider are rook h7 and rook g8.
Yeah, and what I'm thinking is that I have been so obsessed with checkmating, but we're actually a bishop up here now. So if rook g8 and the rook takes back, that means that this rook is not going to be protecting the f2 rook anymore. So we're deviating this rook, which means that maybe I could just take it and then I'll just be a piece up and be very happy. Maybe we don't need to checkmate.
That's it. That's the train of thought we needed. But it takes some time to get, like, there's a few elements that you need to calculate first and realize they're wrong before you maybe would stumble upon that. So that was still like, I think it was a good thought process still.
Yeah, it was just, for some reason, I was just so obsessed with checkmating simply because all of our pieces were like close to the king. So the first thing that came to mind was that, you know, we need to checkmate. But like, we're material up, we don't really need to checkmate to win the game.
Yeah, that's why the first thing I do in every puzzle is like, I just count the material. Maybe I do it quickly, maybe it takes me like 1 second, but it's just something I do, and maybe I don't say it out loud, but always counting the material because it gives you a hint, like kind of what kind of move you need to find, whether it's mate or win material or just keep material and get out of danger. And this one, you can already tell, is going to be easier no matter what. It just has to be easier. There's no way it can be more complicated than last one.
Isn't this a check? Oh, I'm kidding. This is why do I keep on thinking that stuff is checkmating too? I don't understand. Yeah, for some reason I thought this was a checkmate. I don't know. Okay, but yeah, this one, just because we have so many less pieces, yeah, it has to just be simpler, it feels like. So, okay, let's look at the two checks. Those are the first thing that are coming to mind because the king doesn't have that many squares to go to. It only has one. This. No, I don't like that. Okay, I'm just looking at all these checks, but I just don't really see where I'm going with this. I really don't see where I'm going with this. Wait a second. Okay, rook h5. Okay, king goes all the way up here.
And basically, if you give white a single move, you know it's going to be really tough to win because they're going to start checking you, and it's hard to escape.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just like trying to see what happens if like... Because I just can't see this being like check.
And maybe mate at the end.
Yeah, and the mate at the end.
I agree. That seems optimistic. Like, basically, if it's there, I'm sure you would have found it by now because there are only so many checks, right? And there's only so many things you can do to keep the king like stuck on the side. So you gotta trust yourself. Like, if you don't see mate, then move on to a new idea.
Yeah. But I feel like the point of this has to be that there's going to be a mate at some point.
Well, knight e5, like, yeah, rook g3, and if the king escapes the side of the board, then you're certainly not going to be winning at all.
No, I mean, knight e5, it was just me drawing an arrow, being a bit impatient about... But
yeah, I mean, you've looked at the checks, and you've probably, when you're doing these checks, you're trying to keep the king on the side, right? Like, knight f2, knight f4, like, keep the king on the side, but... Basically, when you check him a certain way, he's just going to go back and forth to the same two squares over and over.
Exactly. So I feel like one check might be good, but then, like, can't continue with the checks. One idea that I had was that I want to go knight f4, king h4. And one idea was to go rook g2, because I feel like if the pawn is on h3, we're already eliminating one of the squares that the king can go back to.
Correct. It's definitely true. Anytime you make a move in this position that's not a check, you should calculate what happens if you get checked.
Yeah, that's the part of this I like less. But
like, basically, if you look at rook a6 check and you just like think like, how I'm really gonna escape these checks, and am I gonna be able to deliver a mate to white's king? The answer is probably no, because you either have to run your king forever or you have to block the check with a knight. And if you're blocking the check with a knight, you can't use your knight to give a mate. So it's like almost impossible to think that if you give white a chance to check you, that you're going to have any way to win. So based on that, you sort of have to, you know what you need to do in this position. Probably use mostly checks.
But Amon, first you said that I shouldn't do most checks, and now you're saying I should do most checks.
What did I say? Sorry?
First you said that I shouldn't do, most checks because I should trust my instinct about not, like, doing all checks. But now you're saying that I should do all checks. Or most checks.
Well, no, you were saying about checkmate.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Okay.
And I said you should trust your instinct. If you don't see a mate, don't sit there and tell yourself, oh, no, there has to be a mate. There must be a checkmate puzzle. If you don't see a checkmate, then trust your instincts and move on to a new idea. But I think eventually you start to put some things in your head that must be true. And it eventually gets you closer to the answer. But you do need to take some risks when you put these things in your head. So for example, if you look for a while here and you already have and you don't see a checkmate, you have to tell yourself like, okay, this is not a checkmate puzzle. And you might be wrong about that, and maybe you get the puzzle wrong as a result. You have to start taking some, like, trusting yourself a bit with your calculation. So if you don't see a mate, you just tell yourself, okay, this is not a checkmate puzzle, I need a new idea. And then you stop looking for a mate. And then another thing we've sort of discovered is like, well, if white gets to check, I don't see a way to get out of these checks nicely, and I don't think I'm going to win after that. So you start telling yourself, okay, I'm not going to let white check me. Like, I can't. It's just, I don't see a way to win after that. And again, you might be wrong about these things, but you have to start putting some serious rules into the position in order to narrow it down towards the answer. So even if you're wrong about those things, hey, you got to trust yourself and go for it. So if you don't see mate, tell yourself, this is a checkmate puzzle. We've talked about rook a6 and how it's pretty impossible to get out of checks. So tell yourself, look, I'm not going to let white check me, which means all your moves have to be checks. So put those two things together and start looking for new ideas.
Okay, that's a very good piece of advice. Let's do this. So the ways for me to stop this check are like either by, checking or by going something like this. But this just doesn't really seem like it would do anything productive. So, because I could always just get kicked away. So let's go ahead and look for the checks and look for other ideas. So knight f2 check, king here. Just kind of thinking like what else the puzzle could be about. I'm thinking it could be like, I don't know, like somehow trying to win the rook or something, but I just don't really see how that would be possible. Or winning that pawn somehow, and so I don't know what we could do with that.
Add another rule to the list. It's not a checkmate puzzle. You don't want to let white check you. And you've already said like knight before knight c5, these moves, like, yeah, they're just not good enough. Obviously, like there's no way to stop white from checking with a move. Yeah. So basically you need to check every time. So it's not a checkmate puzzle. You want to check every time. And you also know that if it's like rook and knight, even if you win the pawn against rook, that's a draw. Like you can't really win that.
Yeah.
So how can you win the puzzle if it's not a checkmate and it's not about winning the pawn? Well, you must win the rook, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the only way if it's non-checkmate. Now you could be wrong. Maybe there is a checkmate and you're missing it, but you have to approach the puzzle as if you're correct if you want to forward. So let's say the new rule is like, yeah, the goal is to win the rook.
Okay.
Just say that, and then all your calculations are going to be to try to win the rook. That's probably not the way that you've been calculating the position. You've been calculating trying to checkmate. So if you calculate knowing that you're trying to win the rook, you're probably going to think of some new ideas.
Okay, wait. So knight check here, and now this is so easy. You're a genius. Wait, whoops. I've literally spent like 30 minutes on this.
Correct.
I've spent 30 minutes on this. Oh, that's crazy. Oh, wow. That was such a good piece of advice there.
Yeah, well, you have to... There's no way you're ever going to solve any chess puzzle unless you do some sort of trust. Like, even for the very first puzzle, when it's like checkmate in 1 on f7, you're like, oh, this is checkmate in 1, my bishop's defending. There's some trust going on there in yourself that you're not missing something.
Yeah.
But obviously it's so easy that you don't even think about it. But even in the later puzzles, the more complicated ones, hey, if you don't see a checkmate, don't tell yourself like, oh, this has to be a checkmate puzzle. I'm missing something.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point you have to be like, hey, if I'm going to solve this, I have to start telling myself the hard truth. Either it's there or it's not. So you slowly just make extra rules for yourself and narrow it down so there's less to think about.
Yeah, no, that was really a great piece of advice. Okay. So, how fast do you see these puzzles, Amon? Like, when you see it, are you like, okay, this is the answer?
No, I mean, I might get fortunate, and my first instinct is the answer, and then I could say I see the answer in like 5 seconds. But even if I see the move that ends up being the answer in 5 seconds, in order to have confidence to play it, like for sure, I'm working through the same things that you're working through, or maybe I'm just doing it faster, basically, because I can rule out certain things, or I can know that certain things aren't going to be worth calculating. But I'm thinking the same way as you, which is why when I give you hints, they're just hints based on how I would think about the problem too.
Okay, all right. That feels a little bit better. That feels a little bit better. What do we have here? Okay, we have lots. There are lots of pieces, or actually, it's just the bishop being threatened. It's equal material. Our bishop is being threatened, and the rook is on the same file as the king. There are some tactical ideas with the knight almost being able to go to f6. There are some pin ideas, some things like this, but we need to perfect it. This. Boom. No, this, but you have rook takes, so you have rook takes and here, but there's still going to be like these type of ideas.
So if you start with like maybe they're obvious to you, but if you start with the moves that you could rule out, like rook takes g7, for example.
Yeah.
King takes, is there anything there?
So I'm just thinking that after rook g1, which was my idea to bring the other rook into play, and king f7, I just don't see any continuation.
I agree. So like rook g7 we can rule out. The bishop, let's say if we just bring it back to d2, we're obviously not doing anything. So if we're moving the bishop, we need to do something like bishop takes h6 or bishop takes e5. And are any of those moves any good?
No.
I mean, don't even need to bother looking at them. Okay, what about the knight? Like knight e7 and knight f6, the only sort of aggressive move.
Knight f6, the rook just takes it. I don't really see any purpose with it.
Yeah.
Knight e7. Just, okay, takes. I mean, we can't even take this pawn, to be honest. So
exactly.
No.
So, I mean, you've ruled out like 3 pieces right there, just like that. And if you look at your queen, can it really like join in a meaningful way in one move?
Nope.
So, I mean, even just by doing that, like, you only have really one piece left that makes a meaningful threat, like to g1 and hitting g7. So that's definitely the place I would start, and that's how I would probably get to that answer. That I just look at all the other pieces, and it's literally nothing they can do.
I have to say, this was such a good way of like just ruling everything out, because I feel like many times I like have so many different ideas and I like jump from one to the other and then to the other, and then none of the ideas make sense because I haven't ruled pieces out, basically.
Yeah, especially finding the first move, it will usually point you in a good direction. So let's say you're confident in doubling the rooks, making a big threat. Let's imagine that it gets defended. Like before we go looking at taking our bishop, let's say black even defends it. How can he defend it?
So rook f7, which is one way of defending it. My plan was to go rook takes g7, and after rook takes to have knight f6.
Perfect. Yeah, that looks great. Are there other ways to defend it?
Nah, rook c7, we just take it.
Okay, and what about g5? Probably the last way.
g5, we just take it. Takes, and then we take.
Yep, that looks pretty convincing. So if we have that as our, basically black can't defend it, right?
Yeah.
That's our calculation. So if you can't defend, and I think you're probably looking at black being forced to go like something like takes on f4, right? If you can't defend g7, what else is black gonna do?
If pawn takes, then rook takes g7, king h8, and e5 was my idea.
Okay, so you're threatening checkmate in 1. How does black stop checkmate in
1? Queen f5 maybe? Oh, maybe I guess we have then rook g8 and we're winning the queen at least.
Rook g8, king h7.
King h7, we bring the second rook in.
For mate, yeah. And then if rook g8, if I take it, you were going to do what?
Take the queen.
Sure. Queen f5 or even rook takes g8, check. And
yeah.
Queen f5, kind of same idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so queen f5 we have covered. What about rook f5 instead of queen f5? also to try to stop your mate idea?
Then I guess we have rook h7 and then knight f6.
Yeah, I think I might be maybe a little concerned. Like, I think that's totally winning, but I might be a little concerned in that line that potentially I'm not up enough material.
So knight f6 first.
Yeah, so it's possible knight f6 first could be
Yeah.
it, but both of them do look good.
Yeah, so
Both
we
of
have
them
the
look very
checkmate.
good.
Okay, I'm going for it. Okay, this is the only move we didn't look at.
Well, we didn't look at it, but let's say if your rook was on g7
Yeah.
and the king moved to h8, it's kind of like a similar vibe. So
Yeah, it's like a
can,
transposition, almost.
you can only think now about like a different way that black could react after rook g7 than taking your bishop. That's the only thing worth calculating. Because if he takes the bishop, you know that it's transposed, right?
Yeah. Thing is that there's always gonna be this knight f6 idea though. Like I'm thinking like one way of stopping stuff could be maybe going rook. Okay, I was thinking like rook. Yeah, rook g8. But I mean, like we're always gonna have this rook h7 idea.
Yeah, rook h7 or like on rook
Or
g8,
knight
you
f6.
could take it
Yeah.
and you have knight f6.
So
So unless you see like what black can do instead of playing e takes f4, then you know you're fine to take on g7. So the only things to calculate here are moves other than that. So nice.
okay, so we could take this one and we're threatening checkmate in one. But then we don't have the knight anymore. But if queen f5,
Yes.
then we're gonna have this. And if rook f5. Yeah, this line was tricky. You're right. You can never just think that everything is finished calculating. I mean, I feel like you have to open up for the queen, though, somehow. Like, you
Yeah,
don't...
I mean, e takes d5 looks super logical. You want to open the queen. You're threatening mate 2 times on h7, and black can't take your bishop. So the only thing I'm seeing to calculate is e4. To me, e4 looks like
Okay.
the worth calculating.
Yeah. Do you see it, Aman? Is this something that... do you see it?
No, I don't see it.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Yes, you do.
What if you ask me? You're not gonna believe my answer?
No. You sound way too confident with the no.
Well, then why are you gonna ask me if you're not gonna believe me?
I just want to hear your answer.
I don't see it, so I can't help you. I can only find really good moves for black.
Okay. So the
play it.
question is, Aman, should we let the computer play e4 against us before we keep continuing thinking about this?
But that's the beauty. When you're 5 hours deep into puzzles, I think the main question is, do you care? When you're this deep into puzzles, maybe e4 won't even get played by the engine. Maybe it'll just go queen f5. We might have a way out of this desert. This desert that is 59.
Okay, so you're saying that we should find why e4 doesn't work because of the beauty of it after 59 puzzles.
That was a little bit different than what I was trying to say. In fact, I can safely say that's the opposite of what I was insinuating. I'm saying if you're not thinking about any other move than e takes d5, then you should trust yourself.
Okay. No!
Beautiful, beautiful,
Don't do this.
beautiful.
Don't do it.
Yeah, the engine's not, he's not done with you. He's not done with you.
This one's gonna be required for us to get to 60. Okay.
Okay, so the gamble didn't pay off. We actually have to calculate. We actually have to solve it. Damn it. So, the choice is yours, Anna. There are 2 rook moves that look very similar. Rook g8. She's going with her instinct, taking both pawns. How can it not be better?
Yay!
Well done. You made it.
We made it.
This is like an episode of like a Westworld or something where you entered a new dimension.
We have entered the 60s.
At long last. And you
Only-
did it in under Did it in under 5 hours.
5 hours it took us.
Unbelievable dedication.
What? Do you think anybody's more dedicated than us at this?
Not a single person. There's no one that spent that amount of time to reach that number, I think. And especially not that amount of time on one puzzle.
No. The
there
dedication
can't be
we've
anyone
had
in the
here
world.
today has been insane. Okay. Well, the question is, do we keep this going? Or do we...
So, to be clear, you have a record, right?
I have a record. Wait, chat, can we just make sure I have a record? Yeah.
If it's not a record, then we might need to do one more. But if your record was 59, then you can always safely stop while you're ahead.
That's true. I just feel like this one's easy.
Oh, that's famous last words. 100% she gets it wrong now.
Her record is indeed 59. Okay,
Sorry.
alright, yeah, so good. So this is 60. Okay, alright, so we do have a new record. Okay, let me just try to speedrun this very quickly. Then.
Guarantee. Famous last words weren't actually last words.
They were not last.
I also had a mini heart attack when she picked up the record. Oh.
That was last. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a big thumbs up and also to subscribe. If you ever want to catch me live, go ahead and go to twitch.tv/AnnaCramling. Hope to see you there.